Hi, so very good evening to all of you. Now we're going to discuss the second phase of world history. First में we have discussed about enlightenment as well as about socialist ideas. अब जो अगला टॉपिक है वो बहुत ज़्यादा important है because this talks about the origin of the modern world, right? So we'll talk about the modern state system in different countries which includes America, Britain as well as France. So इसको अच्छे से समझना and then you'll get the better understanding how to start with this. So as always, we'll focus on four things. We'll focus on the syllabus, trends, which kind of questions are coming, किससे ज़्यादा question आ रहा है. Number 3, the previous year questions of these topics, and finally we'll talk about the sources at the end. कि क्या आप पढ़ सकते हो for getting the maximum marks in history optional. So if we see the syllabus of this second part, origin of modern politics. For the sake of understanding the whole syllabus of world history, it is divided into 12 parts. तो हम दूसरा part देख रहे हैं. It includes European state system, American Revolution and Constitution, French Revolution and aftermath from 1789 to 1815, American Civil War with reference to Abraham Lincoln and the abolition of slavery, British democratic politics including parliamentary reformers, free traders and Chartist movement. So these three specific countries, right, if we see that we have to cover in this specific phase. So let us see very quickly. So if we see the trend, let us see the number of questions. I hope you can easily understand. 58 questions have come from here. 58. It means that अगर हम ठीक से देखें, हर साल इस टॉपिक से कम 3 क्वेश्चन आते हैं. Merging all of these topics, all of these three countries, अमेरिका, ब्रिटेन एंड फ्रांस, अगर हम तीनों की बात करें तो हर साल आपको कम से कम 3 क्वेश्चन यहाँ से मिलने वाले हैं. सो व्हाट डज दैट टेल यू? दीज आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स. Alright, so if you're planning to do optional foundation, history foundation, then you can always register in the link below. Description में आपको मिल जाएगा. Then our team will follow up with you and help you in understanding what are the features of our foundation and how you can get the maximum out in order to succeed in this exam. देखो हम सबको पास होना, we need to get a rank. That's something that we are after. So focus on those aspects. तो सारे आपको optional foundation में मिल जाएंगे. Let us see the first part, European state system. तो यूरोपियन स्टेट सिस्टम में अब ये हमारा टॉपिक अब उतना ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट रहा नहीं है. जो फर्स्ट टॉपिक अभी हम देख रहे हैं, सब इंटरनल टॉपिक. अकाउंट फॉर द इमर्जेंस ऑफ नेशनल मोनार्कीज इन यूरोप इन द 16th century. डिड द मोनार्क्स बिल्ड द नेशन स्टेट लेस बाय डिजाइन देन बाय chance? So only once UPSC has asked the question, and that too in 1987. All right, so right now UPSC is not asking question from here. I think it is more than 30-35 years जहाँ से कोई सिंगल क्वेश्चन भी नहीं आया है. तो इसको आप चाहो तो बाद में प्रिपेयर कर सकते हो, बिकॉज एज सच अब इस टॉपिक की एज सच वैल्यू नहीं है, राइट. तो यहाँ पे यूपीएससी कहाँ से फोकस करती है? यूपीएससी स्टार्ट फोकसिंग फ्रॉम ब्रिटेन, फ्रांस एंड इवेंचुअली अमेरिका. उन पे ही ज़्यादा फोकस है. तो इस टॉपिक पे एज सच आप नहीं भी फोकस करोगे तो चल जाएगा. यू विल नॉट लीव एनीथिंग इन द एग्जाम. Then this is very very important, American Revolution. Let us see the categories of questions which have come here. So American War of Independence finally ended in 1783 when Britain acknowledged the independence of the United States of America. So if we see this question, American War of Independence, the battle starts from 1775 and eventually it comes to an end in 1783. And in 1783 we see signing of Treaty of Paris. As per the provisions of this Treaty of Paris, America was declared as a independent power, no longer. I hope all of you know that America, it was a set of 13 colonies which led the war against Britain, and eventually they were able to get the independence, right? So this is what the theme is all about, right? Second, do you understand that lack of statesmanship in London during the 1760s and 1770s was an important contributory factor in precipitating the American Revolution? Analyze. So yes, so if we see during this period, Grenville and his policies, Lord North his policy, King George III, all of these three, their political policies were not sagacious. They were not filled with wisdom, and that is one of the major reasons why we see the problems, right? Till 1763 there was no major problem between the America and the Britain, right? And within next 12 years, right, within next 12 years we see the declaration of independence. So it means that these people came out with various policies which were not liked by the common people of America. Then American War of Independence transformed Europe as well as America. This is a very standard set of questions and it has come twice in fact. American Revolution seems to have come with remarkable suddenness. A roster of talented leaders emerged through 1763 to 75 to make it happen. So we have to talk about some important leaders: James Otis, Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Washington. So all those leaders, they had played a very important role in American Revolution. So when we prepare this topic, be aware that which categories of questions are coming in this area. American Revolution was essentially an economic conflict between American capitalism and British mercantilism. So this is a historical opinion. This is one of the opinion by one of the historian, right? And what do they say? Say that the policies of the Britain, which were led by mercantilist policies, they were eventually responsible for the beginning of American Revolution. And we see that from 1763 onwards, on a very higher pedestal, imposing of various taxes, which led to demand of taxation without representation. In fact, the next topic itself is no taxation without representation. Comment: the American War of Independence deprived Great Britain of one empire, but it strengthened the foundation of another. That is, in 1783, they finally recognized the independence of USA. However, at the same time, India had already come under their control, and they tried to create or increase the foundation of their empire in India, like the Pitt's India Act of 1784, just the immediate year, right? Then the sending of Lord Cornwallis, who came out with the system, who came out with the various systems, like including a permanent settlement, civil services, all those things were reformed by him. So ये कुछ बहुत ही specific question है जो आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा. American Revolution was a natural and even expected event in the history of colonial people who had come of age. So this is something about the stage of American people. They were already aware of the ideas of enlightenment. They were not the people who could be oppressed for a longer period of time. And the moment the colonial rule of Britain became very exploitative, eventually they raised the banner of revolt. This is a same question which is repeated, the same theme. And finally, at the news of Declaration of Independence, crowds gathered to cheer, fire guns and cannon, and ring church bells in Philadelphia, Boston, and other places. But there were many people in America who did not rejoice. So it means that when in 1776 the Declaration of Independence came, eventually everybody was not happy. Some of the people, they were the migrator, who were the first generation, they were not happy about it. Some of the people who were complete supporter of monarchy, they were not happy about it. So many of them, they eventually after the war moved towards Canada, right? So this is a theme which you have to understand. When we see constitution, to 2-3 categories of questions are coming. Like number one, they're just asking the main feature. Second, they're asking about the comparison between the American constitution and the English constitution, which is unwritten in nature. तो वो easy हम सब लोगों के लिए पॉलिटिक्स से भी समझ में आता है. And finally, the question talks about what factors led into the creation of this constitution. And second, can we call it an economic document? So if we see Charles Beard's viewpoint, he calls it an economic document, but this viewpoint has been contested by Forrest McDonald, who calls it a holistic document, right? So historiography also plays parts, right? So whenever you prepare any topic, make sure कि आप सिर्फ dimensions के ऊपर ना जाएं, right? So when you study any topic, what should be the first process? The first step should be, number one, look at the PYQs. Number two, get the basic understanding of that topic. 3, try to understand the opinions, and when you understand the opinions, you understand the historiography. And finally, after the studying part comes the answer writing, जो सबसे डिफिकल्ट रहता है. तो आप सब लोगों को ये चीज़ ध्यान रखनी पड़ेगी कि जब भी पढ़ाई करो, इसलिए ये सीरीज इतनी ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. आप इसको जितना अच्छे से फॉलो करोगे, इवन इफ यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग ऑन योर ओन, दिस इज गोइंग टू बी सो मच यूजफुल. द काइंड ऑफ नॉलेज विच इज रिक्वायर्ड टू क्लियर दिस एग्जाम, तो शार्पनेस डेवलप करनी पड़ती है. एंड थ्रू दिस सीरीज आई एम डेवलपिंग दैट फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू, बिकॉज फॉर मी इट टुक लार्ज नंबर ऑफ ईयर्स, बिकॉज कोई इस तरीके से समझाने वाला नहीं था. बट नाउ सिंस आई एम अवेलेबल, सो ऑलवेज ट्राई योर लेवल बेस्ट टू रीच आउट टू अस एंड ट्राई टू बिकम पार्ट ऑफ 1 or 2 कोर्सेज जो आपके हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल स्पेसिफिक एटलीस्ट हो, जिसमें आप और अच्छे से अपने आप को इवेल्युएट कर पाओ. बिकॉज आंसर राइटिंग में तो हर बार आपको एक मेंटर की हेल्प चाहिए ही होगी. Then comes American Civil War. In the American Civil War, the victory of the North had many consequences. Some of them were direct and obvious. However, its indirect effect on American development were perhaps even more important. So this is about how America got strengthened after the end of the conclusion of American Civil War in 1865. Some were direct impact, some were the indirect impact. Lincoln. So here again we have to understand the historiography, how Abraham Lincoln used to see slavery, but at the same time it was a dilemma for him that in his personal capacity he was not a supporter of slavery. He was somebody who was believer in its abolition. However, when he became the president, this was the biggest dilemma. The first duty is to preserve the union. The slavery was always going to be the secondary stage. Let us see here. Lincoln's main thesis was that the slavery issue has to be decided one way or the other and could no longer be evaded by compromise. Comment in the light of his role in American Civil War. So this was happening in America. And the constitution has come into the final promulgation by 1788, and even the president, the office of the president became prominent by 1789. But they could not take a decision कि slavery को बंद कर दें या फिर उसको चलने दें. That's why eventually it was left to the states, and every time when there used to be an induction of the state, like I've just told you, there were only 13 states in the beginning. However, by the time of 1860 they were having around 35-36 states. So the induction है ना, जो 13 states थी 36 हो गई है, more than 2.5 times. So what was happening at this point of time, that conflict होने के chances बहुत ज़्यादा थे. That's why Lincoln said in 1858, this is his speech from Illinois, where he's saying कि यार ऐसे नहीं चल पाएगा अमेरिका, and he was so right. His prophecy came true within next 2 years. By 1861 eventually we see the beginning of American Civil War. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. Explain Abraham Lincoln's perspective. So you have to understand his perspective very specifically. So again, the impact of American Civil War, 600,000 men had died. Union was preserved, the slaves freed. A nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to proposition that all men are created equal has survived its most terrible ordeal. So this is just about how the America was founded, right, when they won the American War of Independence, and eventually how it ended in the American Civil War. The impact of that is very, very important. Then examine the issues involved in American Civil War. Was it a contest between two separate nations? So if you see American Civil War, America got divided into two parts, the Union, and the second was the Confederacy of Southern States. So the Confederacy of the Southern States was also having a president. They were having their own army, they were having their own flag, and even recognition from the countries like Britain. So can we call it a separate state? So these are the types of things which we need to understand very well when we study in the foundation course. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing all slave, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that. So I hope you are able to understand what I was discussing. कि इस पे dependent नहीं था. It was not dependent that slavery के क्या क्या करना. The first thing was to preserve the Union. Then they will think about social reforms. This is something which is very important. If the state is going to cease to exist, what kind of regulation you're going to have, right? It will again be drifting apart. That's why Abraham Lincoln was always clear in his mind that even though I do not like slavery, but I have to be very, very sure that I have to save the Union first. That's why he's one of the most loved president of USA. Then we see the second topic. The second topic is it's about French. Okay, so let us try to understand French. तो फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन में देखो 3-4 ही थीम है जिन पर रिपीटेडली क्वेश्चंस आते रहते हैं. लेट अस ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट. लाइक नंबर 1 डिबेट, इट इज अबाउट द रोल ऑफ philosophers in the outbreak of French Revolution. The philosopher and thinker may have laid the foundation, however, but the crises were precipitated by social and economic reasons. So this is the debate where David Thompson, he is a famous historian from Europe, he says that the direct connection, okay, between the philosophers and the outbreak of the revolution cannot be established. It is in fact remote and indirect. So this is what this question is all about. The causes included both long-term and structural factors as well as more immediate events. So yes, there were some long-term political, social, cultural as well as the religious reasons. However, from 1787 till 1789, these last 3 years, there were some immediate events. The statement that French Revolution was not caused by French philosophy but by the condition of national life and by the mistakes of the government. Again, can you see कि यही क्वेश्चन रिपीट होता रहता है. सबसे ज़्यादा ये थीमेटिक आपकी रिपीट होती है फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन में. आई एम टेलिंग यू राइट नाउ इटसेल्फ. सो व्हेनेवर यू आर गोइंग टू प्रिपेयर फॉर दिस एग्जाम और इफ यू आर जस्ट डूइंग राइटिंग आंसर्स, तो जब व्हेन यू राइट आंसर्स तो वहाँ भी उन थीम्स पे आंसर ज़्यादा लिखो जहाँ से क्वेश्चन आता है. देखो हमें इम्प्रूव होना है, और इम्प्रूवमेंट कब दिखेगी हमारी सबसे ज़्यादा, जब हम उस चीज़ को प्रिपेयर करें जो एग्जाम में आती है. एंड दैट्स व्हाई यू हैव टू डू दिस. The multiple contradictions that quickly undermine the new edifice has been expressed even before the meeting of Estates General in France. The internal conflict among estates had manifested itself. So this is about the process of the summoning of Estate General and eventually how it leads to the creation of conflict between them. And some conflict were not like वो उनके बाद में आई मीटिंग के बाद, उससे पहले भी थे. This is a very brief kind of question, and specifically you have to understand the circumstances in France. Then one of the most famous documents in the world history, the Declaration of the Rights, was the death warrant to the system of privileges and so of the ancient regime. Yet in the history of ideas, it belongs rather to the past than to the future. So this is about the 26th of August, on which the Declaration of Rights and of the Citizen it came in France. So उसका क्या specific significance था? How it ended the system of privileges. So this is also you have to prepare. Then again the same debate, the connection between philosopher and the outbreak of French Revolution is remote and indirect, David Thompson. Then the counter perspective, not much of a counter perspective, but the counter thinking, which talks about the revolution could not have been a great revolution had the role of philosophers was missing. So it means that once the revolution started, the role of philosophers became very, very important because they were the guiding light, they were the torch bearers. No event as encompassing as French Revolution occurs in an intellectual vacuum. So this is a comment from a famous book known as The History of Civilization. So from there, Ralph and Burns, they talk about this. The writing of philosophers had a tremendous influence on the mind of the people and created a revolutionary awakening in their minds and formed the intellectual creed of the French Revolution. It means that the role of philosophers became very important after its outbreak. उसी पे question चल रहा है. Then how the French Revolution attacked privileges and not property, very analytical kind of question. We have to review various events in order to establish this. Then the role of monarchy in the igniting the French Revolution, about how lofty ideas inspired as well as sustained the revolution throughout. Impact of American War of Independence on French Revolution, same question. Then we have the French Revolution sought to remove both the religious and secular props of the existing social order. System of privileges in France, this was established by the polity as well as the religion. So उसके ऊपर ये क्वेश्चन उन्होंने पूछा हुआ है. Then the comparison of France versus England, how the comparison between the country of John Locke and the country of Montesquieu or Rousseau eventually created a kind of contrast, and this was one of the major reasons for the grievance, right? Then the French Revolution really achieved far less than what it intended to do. Do you agree? This is more about क्या उसने achieve किया, क्या उसने achieve नहीं किया. Again, this is a comment by David Thompson. What mattered in 1789 and what made men revolutionary almost in spite of themselves was the whole revolutionary situation. It means it was not that people wanted revolution in 1789, but the revolutionary situation got created, which eventually led to the beginning of revolution. Again, the same question, ideals of French Revolution has been asked and how it was able to dislodge mercantilism, feudalism, and did it brought eventually the political supremacy of middle class in France. So these are the varied categories of question from French Revolution. I would say if you understand this topic in a very good manner, तो बहुत अच्छा result लेके आ सकते हो. So make sure you study these topics and PYQs के ऊपर focus करो. Then we have one of the most important personality, Napoleon. So Napoleon, the questions have come with respect to his Napoleonic Code. UPSC has asked a question on that. Continental system is very, very important. Continental system was one of the major reasons for his downfall, and that has been asked by UPSC repeatedly. They've also asked about that how he was not a revolutionary. However, he ensured that majority of the ideas of the French Revolution, they could be codified. So that question has been asked. Again, his preferential stance or the continental system. So इनके ऊपर दो तीन ही थीम है, उन्हीं के ऊपर यूपीएससी पूछता है. Then the spirit behind the reforms of Napoleon and in his consulate, right? He was a military personality. That's why David Thompson comments that the spirit behind the great reforms of Napoleon's consulate at home was a transference of the methods of Bonaparte the general to the task of Bonaparte the statesman, critically examine. Then continental blockade was a misconceived idea of economically defeating Great Britain. Again, the same category of question. Then the reforms of Napoleon, how did he heal the wounds of France? From 1789, the revolution continued till 1799. In those 10 years, there were a large number of excesses which were committed, and how he was able to ensure that French people eventually can stay happy. To what extent did the economic war with England became his undoing? So आपको theme समझ में आ गई होंगी that when you prepare Napoleon, UPSC is asking less question on his military victories, right? Military का paper नहीं है ये. That's why majority of the questions are with respect to his policies. Then, if we see the topic of Britain, ब्रिटेन में देखो 3 ही थीम है, पार्लियामेंट्री रिफॉर्मर्स है, फ्री ट्रेडर्स है, एंड फाइनली कम द चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट. आउट ऑफ दीज 3 ऑल्सो 2 आर मोर इंपॉर्टेंट, पार्लियामेंट्री रिफॉर्मर एंड द लास्ट वन दैट इज द चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट. फ्री ट्रेडर से भी ज्यादा क्वेश्चन नहीं आता, आज तक एक ही बार क्वेश्चन आया है. तो यहाँ पे द फर्स्ट रिफॉर्मेशन एक्ट और 1832 occupies a significant place in the constitutional development of Britain. The passing of the Reform Act marked the real beginning of modern party organization in England. In a real sense, the present political system dates from 1832. So we have to understand the significance of this Reform Act of 1832, how it led to the beginning of the political party system. Eventually, how the changes came in Britain relatively slow on the slower side and in a very democratic manner. Though the reform was inevitable, the act by which it was accomplished was open to grave criticism. Then account for the growth of liberalism in Britain, and finally again the effect of liberalism on social and economic life of England. So these are the categories of questions which have come from this topic. It's a very brief topic but very good topic from the perspective. यहाँ से क्वेश्चन ठीक ठाक आ जाता है, हर दूसरे साल तो एक क्वेश्चन आप एक्सपेक्ट कर ही सकते हो ओवरऑल. The argument of the free traders were a curious mixture of economic hard-headedness, social benevolence, cosmopolitan idealism, and class prejudice critically examined. Again, once industrial revolution was able to pick up, by the early 19th century, these free traders, like in India also, if you read modern history, in 1813, the trading monopoly of the East India Company, it was dislodged. And by 1833, it became a purely administrative body. So this was happening as a result of the rise of utilitarian philosophy in England. और उसी के ऊपर ये क्वेश्चन है. These became the supporter of free traders. Then the last topic of this theme, Chartist movement. Chartist movement not only fulfilled some of the demands of the middle class, but its ramifications were felt among the working class and the colonies as well. Chartist movement failed to achieve its stated objectives, but succeeded in seeding the idea that representative democracy should include all citizens. So Chartist movement is all about that. It was the first working class movement in the whole of the world. The Reform Act of 1832 was not able to give right to vote to them. They were not included in the representative institutions, and as a result of that, eventually they started this movement from 1838 till 1848. 10 साल के लिए movement चला, and they had a specific charter. 6 specific demands were there. So UPSC times and again asked question about it, that the roots of the Chartist movement were partly economic, partly political, and what was the impact of this Chartist movement. It failed till 1848, but how in the future those demands were accepted by the government. तो यही सब इसके कैटेगरीज ऑफ क्वेश्चन है, कोई इसमें ज़्यादा दिक्कत वाला क्वेश्चन है नहीं. The roots of Chartist movement in Great Britain were partly political and partly economic. Roots were same question आ गया है. Review the background and despite its failure, how had their demands been met in the succeeding years. So इतना ही क्वेश्चन है इस स्पेसिफिक थीम पे, but please try to understand. If you are preparing with the mindset that I want to clear this exam, you need to prepare all these 3 themes of America, France as well as Britain very carefully, because every year in the final exam you may encounter at least 2 or maximum 4 questions. इस थीम का ये फायदा है, ठीक है, और ये आपका बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है सिलेबस का. इवन इन योर जनरल स्टडीज जो आपका जीएस वाला पार्ट आता है हिस्ट्री का, मेंस में वहाँ भी यहाँ से क्वेश्चन आ जाते हैं. फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन, अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन, ब्रिटेन से तो नहीं आता है वहाँ पे इतना, बट उन दोनों से आने की प्रोबेबिलिटी बहुत ज़्यादा रहती है. सो मेक श्योर दैट व्हेन यू स्टडी फॉर दिस एग्जाम, तो दिमाग को बिल्कुल खोल के चलो. स्ट्रेटेजिकली यू शुड बी वेरी वेरी क्लियर. इट शुड नॉट बी कि सिर्फ पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं और पता नहीं जो होगा देख लेंगे. ऐसे नहीं करना पढ़ाई. ऐसे पढ़ाई करेंगे तो देखो अननेसेसरी सफरिंग बढ़ती चली जाएगी, रिजल्ट नहीं आएगा. नाउ लेट अस सी सोर्सेस, है ना. मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द स्टूडेंट वेट सोर्स बता दो हमें, उसके बाद तो दुनिया बदल देंगे, बट ठीक है बदलो. तो चैप्टर 1, the chapter is the Euro-American world in the last quarter of the 18th century. Again the book is same, Ranjan Chakrabarti. In the first video also I recommended one book. साथ में इग्नोर कर सकते हो, श्रद्धा है उतनी तो कर लीजिए, नहीं तो इतना भी कर लोगे तो ये एग्जाम तो निकल जाएगा. अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन एंड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, पेज नंबर आपको 16 से 29 पे मिल जाएंगे. फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन का तो पूरा चैप्टर नंबर 2 है, तो आप शांति से चैप्टर नंबर 2 पढ़ लो. देन चैप्टर नंबर 6 अमेरिकन सिविल वॉर, उसमें पूरा सिविल वॉर कवर्ड है. ब्रिटिश डेमोक्रेटिक पॉलिटिक्स इस बुक में नहीं दे रखा अच्छे से. चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट थोड़ा सा 1-2 चैप्टर में दे रखा है, बट उतना अच्छे से नहीं दिया हुआ. ऑलराइट, तो उसके लिए बेटर क्या रहेगा कि आप द पॉलिटिकल ट्रांजिशन इन ब्रिटेन 1780 to 1850 ये आप इस वाली थीम से पढ़ लीजिए, ये आपका इग्नू का है, एग्जैक्ट हमने टाइटल डाल दिया है, ठीक है। इफ़ यू वांट एक्सेस टू दीज रिसोर्सेज कि नहीं आप ही दे दो हमें, तो आप रजिस्टर कर लीजिए, रजिस्टर करने का टीम आपके साथ शेयर कर देगी, कोई दिक्कत नहीं आएगी उसके रिलेटेड। बट यहाँ पर भी आप चाहो तो जो पहला टॉपिक सबसे पहले मैंने आपको बताया था, मॉडर्न स्टेट एंड पॉलिटिक्स, द अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन, ये आप चाहे तो इससे भी थोड़ा सा रेफर कर सकते हो। देखो, जब भी हम पढ़ाई कर सकते हैं, आवर माइंड शुड बी वेरी क्लियर कि हमें कितना टाइम लगना चाहिए क्या करने में। मेरा एम तो यही रहता था कि भाई कम से कम 5 से 5.5 महीने के अंदर मेरा ऑप्शन अच्छे से कवर हो जाए। एंड मैंने ऐसे अच्छे से मेरे नोट्स बन जाने चाहिए, मेरा PYQ कवर हो जाना चाहिए, मुझे सबसे डिफिकल्ट थीम आ जानी चाहिए, हिस्टोग्राफी अच्छे से आ जानी चाहिए। एंड व्हेन यू आर एबल टू डू दिस, देन यू कैन फाइट इन दिस एग्जामिनेशन। एंड इफ़ यू आर थिंकिंग कि भाई मुझे वो अच्छे से करना है, खुद से पता नहीं होगा नहीं होगा, इफ़ यू आर नॉट हैविंग द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ हिस्ट्री, देन वी आर स्टार्टिंग विद दिस फाउंडेशन कोर्स एंड यू कैन ऑलवेज बिकम अ पार्ट ऑफ इट। एंड वंस यू बिकम अ पार्ट ऑफ इट, यू विल गेट द बेस्ट मेंटरशिप विच इज पॉसिबल फॉर दिस ऑप्शनल, कोई दिक्कत नहीं आएगी। अलॉन्ग विद दिस विल ऑल्सो हेल्प यू आउट फॉर जनरल स्टडीज, बिकॉज नाउ वी हैव एक्सपैंडेड आवर डोमेन्स एंड वी आर ऑल्सो मेकिंग श्योर कि भाई जितना भी स्टूडेंट हमारे पास आए, दे गेट द बेस्ट ऑफ द मेंटरशिप फॉर दिस एग्जामिनेशन, because mentorship is something which is lacking in majority of the institutes, and that is one of the reason number one I would say। कंटेंट तो देखो बहुत ज़्यादा ओपन में भी है, ऐसा नहीं है कि कंटेंट नहीं है दुनिया के पास, बट कंटेंट को रिस्ट्रिक्ट करना, सही चीज़ को पढ़ना, मेंस की आंसर राइटिंग सीखना और फिर उसको इवॉल्व करते करते इतने अच्छे ओपिनियन शेप करना कि इंटरव्यू में भी दिक्कत ना आए, दिस इज़ एग्जैक्टली वट वी ट्राई टू टीच इन आर क्लासेस, कि आपका सब कुछ एक साथ खत्म हो। और हिस्ट्री जब ऑप्शनल पढ़ते हैं, तो इट्स नॉट जस्ट अबाउट इंटरव्यू और मेंस, इट्स ऑल्सो अबाउट प्रीलिम्स। तो वहाँ का जो अपना एंशिएंट, मिडिवल और मॉडर्न वाला पार्ट है, आराम से 14 से 15 क्वेश्चन तो वहाँ से आपके प्रीलिम्स में भी आने वाले। सो इफ यू विश टू प्रिपेयर स्ट्रेटेजिकली लाइक आई डिड, आई चूज हिस्ट्री जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ दिस वॉज द मेजर रीजन। आई वॉज फ्रॉम बीटेक बैकग्राउंड, इसलिए मैंने चूज़ किया था कि भाई आराम से एग्जाम क्लियर हो जाएगा। बट आई डिड नॉट नो द लव विल बिकम सो हाई, है ना, लव ड्रंक हो जाएंगे और फाइनली बहुत अच्छा इसी के अंदर करने लग जाएंगे। बट दैट्स हाउ द जर्नी हैज़ बीन, यू डू नॉट नो विच वे यूल गो। सो इफ यू वांट एक्सेस टू मेंटरशिप रिसोर्सेज, फिल दिस फॉर्म फॉर स्ट्रेटेजिक डॉक्यूमेंट्स, राइट। सेकंड, क्लासेस को अटेंड करो यूट्यूब पे। थोड़ा सा देखो, जितना ज़्यादा आप लोग डिसिप्लिन होना सीखोगे तभी क्लासेस कर पाओगे। तो ये पहले यूट्यूब से करो स्टार्ट, फिर बाद में फाउंडेशन कोर्स में कर सकते हो। एंड रीड द प्रेस्क्राइब्ड बुक्स। ये वीडियो देखने का कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है अगर लास्ट में बुक्स ही नहीं देखेंगे कि चलो ठीक है मज़ा आया, अच्छा लगा, है ना, सारी चीज़ें समझ में आ जाएगी छोटे से वीडियो में। हावेवर इफ़ यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू इम्प्लीमेंट, तो भाई देखो रिजल्ट नहीं आएगा। बी वेरी क्लियर विद योर सेल्फ। मूवीज़ देख के फॉल्स होप नहीं आना चाहिए। मूवीज़ देख लेते हैं हम ऐसी ऐसी जो सिविल सर्विसेज के ऊपर हैं, वी सी दोज काइंड ऑफ वीडियोस कि रॉयल एंट्री हो रही है, ये हो रहा है, वो हो रहा है। अरे पहले एंट्री तो करो, पहले एग्जामिनेशन क्लियर तो करो, उसके बाद रॉयल एंट्री होगी ना। रॉयल एंट्री सीधा नहीं होती है। सो मेक श्योर यू डू योर लेवल बेस्ट एंड प्रिपेयर स्ट्रेटेजिकली। दिस एग्जाम कैन बी ईजिली क्लियर्ड इन 1 to 2 अटैम्प्ट्स, बहुत आसानी से कर सकते हैं। बट एक ही दिक्कत आती है कि हम टाइम से मेंटरशिप नहीं मिलती है हमें, और हम गलत जगह टाइम यूटिलाइज, वो टाइम यूटिलाइजेशन के ऊपर है। गलत चीज़ में टाइम लगाओगे तो फिर वो अगले साल फिर से रिपीट करना पड़ेगा। एंड दिस होल एग्जाम इज मोर ऑफ लाइक, है ना, वो फिलोसफी की तरह है दैट इट इज अ लाइफ आफ्टर डेथ वाली सिचुएशन आती है कि फिर से करो, फिर से करो, फिर से करो, तो वो कहानी एंड नहीं होती। यू हैव टू क्लियर प्रीलिम्स, मेंस एंड इंटरव्यू इन वन गो। इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट इंटरव्यू से आगे अगली बार सीधा प्रिविलेज मिलेगी, चलो मेंस में बैठ जाओ, बहुत अच्छा हो गया आपने ना, अब जरूरत नहीं है पेन उठाने की जरूरत नहीं है, ABCD तो मार्क करना आता है आपको। दिस इज नॉट हाउ इट्स गोइंग टू बी। सो वट एवर प्रॉब्लम चैलेंजेस यू हैव विद रिस्पेक्ट टू सिविल सर्विसेज, you can call on these numbers, you can reach to our website also, you can subscribe to our channel। जितने भी अच्छे वीडियोस अभी फ्यूचर में आने वाले हैं उसके लिए आप एक तरीके से अपना सब्सक्राइब करोगे तो टाइमली नोटिफिकेशन मिलता रहेगा आपको, ठीक है। ऑल द वेरी बेस्ट, टेक केयर एंड मेक श्योर कि एक्शन जरूर होना चाहिए, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन शुड बी देयर। अगर इम्प्लीमेंटेशन नहीं होगा तो फिर कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है कुछ भी वीडियो देखने का, ठीक है। सो ऑन दैट नोट, ऑल द वेरी बेस्ट।